Chen's fingers traced the intricate braid that cascaded down her back, a masterpiece of patience and tradition that had taken her 3 years to grow. The morning sun filtered through the coffee shop window, casting golden highlights across the dark silk of her hair as she bent over her laptop, coding algorithms with the same precision her grandmother had taught her for weaving stories into hair. At 22, Maya possessed a quiet confidence that most people mistook for shyness. Her almond-shaped eyes held depths that spoke of ancient wisdom, inherited from generations of strong women who had survived wars, displacement, and new beginnings in foreign lands. She moved through the world with the fluid grace of someone who understood balance, not just the physical kind that came from 8 years of martial arts training, but the emotional equilibrium that allowed her to remain centered. Amid chaos, the grind coffee shop buzzed with its usual morning crowd of tech workers, students, and professionals clutching their caffeine lifelines. Maya had claimed her favorite corner table, the one that offered her a clear view of both entrances and kept her back protected habits ingrained by years of martial arts training that had taught her to assess every room she entered. Her black laptop bag sat beside her, its worn exterior hiding the dual life she led: software developer by day, third-degree black belt in Taekwondo by night. "Excuse me, is anyone sitting here?" Maya looked up to find the elderly man with kind eyes and a worn baseball cap, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. She smiled and shook her head, returning to her screen where lines of code flowed like poetry. The algorithm she was developing would help match bone marrow donors with patients, her way of giving back to a world that had often felt hostile. To someone who looked like her. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate. "Sarah, don't forget, dinner with my parents tonight at 7. They're so excited to meet you." Maya's lips curved into a genuine smile. Sarah had become more than a roommate over the past 6 months. She was the sister Maya had never had, the first person outside her family to truly see past the quiet exterior to the fierce spirit within. Sarah's parents were flying in from Portland specifically to meet the amazing woman their daughter couldn't stop talking about. She was about to respond when the atmospheric pressure in the cafe seemed to shift. Conversations dimmed. The cheerful chatter that had provided the perfect background noise for concentration faded into uncomfortable murmurs. 3 young women had entered, moving with the predatory grace of a pack that had identified prey. Maya recognized them immediately: Brittany, Jessica, and Chloe from the university. They were the type who had peaked in high school but refused to acknowledge that the real world operated by different rules. Designer handbags, perfectly styled hair that required daily salon visits, and expressions that suggested the world owed them something they hadn't received. Maya had encountered them before at various campus events and local gatherings. They seemed to take personal offense to her existence, her academic success, her comfortable relationship with herself, her refusal to apologize for taking up space in their perceived territory. Brittany spotted her first, nudging her companions with a manicured elbow. Well, look what we have here." Maya's training kicked in automatically. Assess the threat, maintain awareness, control breathing, escape routes, main entrance, back exit through kitchen, potential weapons, none needed. Response level, observe. And a dash escalate. She kept her expression neutral and continued typing, hoping they would lose interest and move on. Sometimes predators were like wild animals. If you didn't react, they would find more entertaining targets. Maya, right? Brittany's voice carried that particular tone of false friendliness that every woman learned to recognize by the time she turned 16. "Working on something important?" "Just some code," Maya replied quietly, not looking up from her screen. "Good morning, Brittany. Oh, she knows my name." Brittany laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. "How sweet." "Jessica, Chloe, Maya know my name." The elderly man at the nearby table shifted uncomfortably, his protective instincts clearly triggered by the brewing tension. Other patrons began to pay attention, some discreetly filming with their phones, the modern reflex to document drama rather than prevent it. Maya saved her work and began to close her laptop. The smart move was to leave. Her sensei had taught her that the best fight was the one you never had to have. But as she reached for her bag, Jessica moved to block her path while Chloe positioned herself on the other side. "Don't leave on our account," Jessica said, her voice dripping with mock concern. "We were just admiring your hair. It's so ... traditional." The way she said traditional made it sound like a dirty word. Maya stood slowly, her laptop bag slung over one shoulder. "Excuse me," she said politely, moving toward the gap between Jessica and the wall. "You know what I don't understand?" Brittany continued, as if Maya hadn't spoken. "Why do some people cling so desperately to the past? Like we're in America. Now, when are you going to start acting like it?" The coffee shop had gone completely silent. Even the espresso machine seemed to pause in its grinding. Maya felt the familiar tightening in her chest that came with being made invisible and hypervisible, simultaneously ignored as a person, but hyperanalyzed as a symbol. "I think there might be some misunderstanding," Maya said carefully. "I was just leaving." "Misunderstanding?" Chloe laughed. "No misunderstanding. We're just trying to help you fit in better. Assimilation, you know, for your own good." Maya's grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Some people mistake kindness for weakness, little flower. But bamboo bends without breaking and grows back, stronger than before." She tried once more to leave, but Brittany stepped directly into her path. "Actually, I have an idea," Brittany said, and Maya saw something dangerous flicker in her eyes. "Let's help you with that hair. It's so ... much. Don't you think it would look better if it was more ... manageable?" Before Maya could process what was happening, Brittany had pulled a pair of scissors from her purse, the sharp, professional kind that belonged in a salon, not a coffee shop. The kind that suggested this confrontation had been planned. "Brittany, no!" The elderly man stood up, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "This has gone far enough." But Jessica and Chloe were already moving, grabbing Maya's arms with surprising strength. The coordination was too smooth, too practiced. This wasn't spontaneous cruelty, it was calculated humiliation. Maya's mind split into two tracks. The civilian part of her brain screamed in shock and disbelief. But the martial artist's mind remained. Ice cold, cataloging everything. Grip strength, positioning, angles of attack, the exact location of every person in the room. 3 opponents. Confined space, civilians present. Potential weapons, scissors, hot coffee, various blunt objects. Primary objective, minimize harm to innocents. Secondary objective, neutralize threat with minimal force. The scissors flashed in the morning light. As Brittany grabbed Maya's braid. "Hold still," she said, her voice honeyed with false sweetness. "This will only take a second." Time slowed to crystalline clarity. Maya could hear her sensei's voice. "True strength is not in the force of your strike, but in choosing when not to strike." But as the cold metal touched her neck and she felt the first strands of hair being severed, Maya realized that sometimes choosing not to strike was just another form of violence against yourself. The first cut sent 3 years of growth, floating to the ground like black snow. What do you think will happen next? Share your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling stories. The silence in the coffee shop was deafening, broken only by the soft whisper of falling hair and Brittany's triumphant giggle. Maya stood perfectly still as more strands drifted to the floor around her feet, each severed piece carrying memories, her grandmother braiding her hair while telling stories of their ancestors, Sarah's gentle fingers learning the traditional patterns, the quiet moments of self-care that had become meditation. "Oops," Brittany said, not sounding sorry at all. "I think I cut it a little uneven. Let me fix that for you." The scissors moved again, higher this time. Maya's braid, once a symbol of heritage and patience, was being hacked away with the casual cruelty of someone destroying a work of art they couldn't create themselves. Breathe, Maya told herself. Control the response. Assess the full situation, but something deeper than training was stirring within her, a righteous anger that had been suppressed by a lifetime of being told to be grateful, to be quiet, to not make waves. Her grandmother's voice whispered again, but this time it was different. There comes a time, little flower, when bamboo must stop bending. Please stop, Maya said quietly, her voice carrying a strange calm that made even Brittany pause for a moment. Or what? Jessica taunted, tightening her grip on Maya's left arm. You'll cry? Run to mommy and daddy? I'll call the police, the elderly man said firmly, pulling out his phone. For what? A haircut? Chloe laughed. We're just helping our friend with a makeover, right, Maya? Another cut. More hair falling. Maya felt something inside her chest, not breaking, but transforming. Like a caterpillar dissolving in its cocoon, every cell rebuilding itself into something new. The barista, a young man with worried eyes, had grabbed his phone and was clearly debating whether to intervene. Other customers sat frozen, trapped between the desire to help and the paralysis that came with witnessing cruelty. You know what? Your problem is, Brittany continued, drunk on her perceived power. You think you're better than everyone else. With your perfect grades and your perfect little ethnic hair and your perfect little ethnic clothes. But look at you now. Not so perfect anymore, are you? Another cut. This one so close to Maya's scalp that she felt the cold metal against her skin. That's when something crystallized in Maya's mind. This wasn't just about hair. This was about every microaggression she'd endured and internalized. Every time someone had told her to be grateful for the bare minimum of human decency. Every moment she'd made herself smaller to make others comfortable. Her sensei had taught her that martial arts wasn't about fighting. It was about ending fights. But he'd also taught her that sometimes ending a fight required showing strength. Last chance, Maya said, her voice so quiet that Brittany had to lean closer to hear. Let me go. Or what, China doll? Brittany sneered, bringing the scissors up for another cut. Maya moved. 8 years of training compressed into a single fluid motion. She twisted her right shoulder down and forward, breaking Jessica's grip with a technique so smooth it looked like dancing. Her left hand came up to trap Chloe's wrist, while her right elbow struck backward. Not hard enough to cause serious injury, but with enough force to make Jessica stagger back. Chloe, still holding Maya's right arm, suddenly found herself in an armbar that had her up on her toes, whimpering. Brittany, still holding the scissors, blinked in confusion as Maya materialized directly in front of her, inside her reach. One hand controlling the scissors while the other rested gently but ominously on Brittany's throat. The word no, Maya said in that same quiet voice, is a complete sentence. The transformation was so sudden that the coffee shop seemed to inhale. Collectively, 3 seconds earlier, Maya had been a victim. Now she stood like a master calligrapher, every line of her body perfectly controlled, radiating a power that made the air itself feel different. You're insane, Brittany whispered. But her voice shook. I'm done, Maya corrected. I'm done being polite to people who mistake kindness for weakness. I'm done shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me anyway. And I'm especially done with people who think they can put their hands on me without consequences. She applied just enough pressure to the nerve cluster in Chloe's wrist to make her point. Chloe dropped to one knee with a yelp. Let her go. Jessica shouted, but she made no move to advance. Something in Maya's posture suggested that approaching would be unwise. I will, Maya said reasonably, as soon as we're clear on a few things. First, assault is assault, whether you call it a haircut or not. Second, this is the last time any of you will put your hands on me or anyone else. because now you know what happens when you do." The elderly man had his phone out, but instead of calling 911, he was recording. "Good for you, honey," he said firmly. "Stand your ground." Maya looked directly at Brittany. "The scissors." Brittany's hand opened automatically, and the scissors clattered to the floor. Maya kicked them away with her foot, never taking her eyes off the three women. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya continued in that same conversational tone. "You're going to leave. You're going to think very carefully about your life choices. And if I ever see you again, you're going to cross the street." She released Chloe, who stumbled backward, cradling her wrist. "This isn't over," Brittany said, but her voice cracked on the words. Maya smiled then, and it was a beautiful, terrible thing, the smile of someone who had just discovered their own power. "Yes," she said, "it is." The three women backed toward the door, their pack dynamics shattered. Jessica nursed her solar plexus where Maya's elbow had found its mark. Chloe flexed her wrist gingerly. Brittany kept glancing back, as if she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. As they reached the door, Maya called out, "Brittany?" All three turned. "Next time you want to cut someone's hair," Maya said pleasantly, "might I suggest you get their consent first? And maybe some actual training? You're terrible at it." The door chimed as they fled. The coffee shop erupted in applause. The barista was grinning so widely it looked painful. The elderly man was wiping his eyes, still recording. "That," he said, "was the most beautiful thing I've seen in 40 years. Maya knelt to gather the scattered pieces of her hair, her hands finally beginning to shake as the adrenaline wore off. The braid that had taken 3 years to grow lay in pieces on the coffee shop floor, but somehow she felt lighter rather than diminished. A warm hand touched her shoulder. She looked up to find a woman about her own age with concerned eyes and a gentle smile. "I'm a hairstylist," the woman said softly. "My salon is 2 blocks from here. If you'd like, I can fix this for you. No charge. I saw what happened. What they did was assault, and I'd be honored to help." Maya stood slowly, looking at her reflection in the coffee shop window. Her hair was choppy and uneven, brutally shorn in places. But her eyes held something new. Something that looked like freedom. "Thank you," she said. "I'd like that very much." As she gathered her laptop bag, her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Just saw the video on social media. Oh my God, Maya. Are you okay? My parents want to adopt you. Coming to get you now." Maya smiled as she realized that somehow, impossibly, this was going to be okay. "Better than okay." The elderly man approached as she headed for the door. "Young lady," he said, "I want you to know that what you did today, standing up for yourself like that, gives an old man hope. My granddaughter is about your age, and I pray that if anyone ever tries to hurt her, she has half the courage you just showed." "Courage," Maya repeated, testing the word. It felt new on her tongue, like a language she was just learning to speak. As she walked out into the morning sunshine, her ruined hair moving differently in the breeze, Maya realized that Brittany had been right about one thing. She wasn't the same person she'd been when she walked into that coffee shop. She was someone much more dangerous, someone who knew her own worth. The salon was called Bloom, and it lived up to its name. Soft natural light filtered through large windows, illuminating walls painted in calming sage green and adorned with photographs of women from every conceivable background, all sporting gorgeous, healthy hair. The air smelled of essential oils and possibility. Maya sat in the stylist's chair, watching in the mirror as Keiko, the woman who had offered to help assess the damage with professional precision. Keiko's hands moved gently through what remained of Maya's hair, her touch reverent rather than clinical. "They really went at you," Keiko murmured, her Japanese accent lending musical quality to her words. "But you know what? Good bones, really good bones. And hair grows. How bad is it?" Maya asked, surprised to find she wasn't as devastated as she'd expected to be. Bad enough that we need to go short to even it out, Keiko said honestly. But I'm thinking, have you ever considered a pixie cut? With your bone structure, your eyes ... that would be stunning. Maya studied her reflection. The woman looking back at her wasn't the same person who had sat down at that coffee table 3 hours ago. Something fundamental had shifted in her posture. The set of her shoulders, the directness of her gaze. Do it, she said. As Keiko worked, the bell over the salon door chimed repeatedly. Word was spreading through the neighborhood about the incident at the grind. The video the elderly man had recorded was already making rounds on social media, and apparently Maya had become something of a local hero. Girl, you are my new favorite person, announced Chen, a flamboyant man in his 30s who'd burst through the door like a force of nature. I saw that video, and honey, when you flipped that switch ... chef's kiss. Pure artistry. More people kept arriving, not to gawk, but to show support. A group of college women brought flowers. An elderly Korean woman appeared with homemade soup. The owner of the bookstore next door came by just to shake Maya's hand. This happens more than you'd think, Keiko said quietly as she sectioned Maya's hair. People see someone stand up to bullies, and it gives them permission to believe they could do it too. Maya's phone had been buzzing nonstop. Text messages of support from classmates and acquaintances she barely knew. Friend requests on social media from strangers who wanted to celebrate her courage. But the message that meant the most came from an unexpected source. Unknown number. Maya, this is David Kim from your algorithms class. I wanted you to know that what you did today was incredible. I've been dealing with those same 3 girls. For months, they've been targeting several Asian students in our program. You probably saved someone else from going through what you did. If you ever want to talk, or if you need anything, please reach out. You're a hero. As Keiko worked, more stories emerged from the growing crowd in the salon. A teenager named Marcus talked about being cornered by the same group outside the campus library. A graduate student named Priya mentioned hostile encounters at departmental events. The pattern was becoming clear. Brittany, Jessica, and Chloe had been waging a campaign of targeted harassment that no one had felt empowered to address. There, Keiko said, stepping back. What do you think? Maya stared at her reflection in wonder. The pixie cut transformed her completely, accentuating her cheekbones and making her eyes look enormous. But more than that, it looked like freedom. No more hour-long morning routines. No more weight pulling at her scalp. No more symbol of traditional femininity that could be weaponized against her. I look like someone who could kick ass, she said, then laughed at her own surprise. You look like someone who kicked ass, Deshawn corrected. Because honey, you absolutely did. Maya's phone rang. Sarah's ringtone. Oh my God, Maya, where are you? I've been calling and texting. I'm at a salon called Bloom, about 2 blocks from the grind. I'm okay, Sarah. Better than okay. I'm coming to get you. Mom and Dad moved dinner to 5, so we'd have more time to talk about everything. They are so proud of you, Mom cried when she saw the video. Your mom saw the video? Everyone saw the video. It's been shared like 10,000 times already. There's a hashtag Maya Challenge. People are posting stories about times they wished they'd stood up to bullies. After Sarah hung up, Maya sat quietly in the styling chair, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. A simple decision to stop tolerating intolerable behavior had somehow become a catalyst for something much larger. Her phone buzzed. With a call from an unknown local number. Is this Maya Chen? The voice was professionally warm, but carried an undercurrent of excitement. Yes, who is this? This is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. I wondered if you might be available for an interview about what happened at the grind this morning. We've been getting calls all day from viewers who want to hear your story. Oh, I don't think. The thing is, Jennifer continued gently, We've been investigating reports of harassment targeting Asian American students at the university. Your situation appears to be part of a much larger pattern. Speaking out could help other victims find their voice. Maya looked around the salon at all the faces watching her with hope and admiration. These were people who had been carrying their own stories of harassment and discrimination, waiting for someone to show them that standing up was possible. "I'll do it," she said. The reporter arrived within an hour, along with a cameraman and what seemed like half the neighborhood. Keiko had to start turning people away when the salon reached capacity. "Maya," Jennifer began as the camera rolled, "can you tell us what happened this morning at the Grind coffee shop?" As Maya recounted the story, she watched something happen in the faces around her. The more she talked about refusing to accept unacceptable treatment, the straighter people stood. The more she described that moment of choosing to fight back, the more determined expressions became. "What would you say to someone who's experiencing similar harassment?" Jennifer asked if Maya thought of David's text, of Marcus's story about being cornered, of all the people who had shared their experiences in the salon that day. "I'd say that you're not alone," she said, looking directly into the camera. "I'd say that no one has the right to put their hands on you or tear you down because of who you are or where you come from. And I'd say that sometimes the moment you stop accepting unacceptable behavior is the moment you discover just how strong you really are. Any message for your attackers?" Maya smiled, and it was genuinely warm rather than vindictive. "I hope they learn something from this. I hope they examine why they felt the need to hurt someone else, and I hope they choose to be better. Everyone deserves the chance to grow." After the interview, as Maya was finally preparing to leave with Sarah, her phone rang one last time. The number made her stomach drop. "The university's administration office, Ms. Chen? This is Dean Morrison. I've been made aware of an incident this morning involving several of our students. Would you be available to meet with me tomorrow to discuss what happened?" Maya felt a familiar tightening in her chest, the old reflex to apologize, to minimize, to make herself smaller. But then she caught sight of herself in the salon mirror. The woman looking back at her had short hair and strong shoulders and eyes that held power. "Of course," she said. "But I should mention that I'll be bringing a witness and possibly a lawyer, and I expect this to be taken seriously as the assault was." "Absolutely," Dean Morrison said quickly. "I assure you, the university takes these matters very seriously." As Maya finally left the salon, surrounded by her new impromptu community of supporters, she realized that this was just the beginning. The three women who had tried to cut her down to size had inadvertently done something much more dangerous than they'd intended. They'd shown her exactly how powerful she was, and now everyone else knows it too. The tension is building. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which character you're rooting for. Your support helps me create more incredible stories like this one. Maya sat across from Dean Morrison's mahogany desk, flanked by Sarah and a lawyer named Patricia Wang, who had contacted her after seeing the news interview. The dean's office was all polished wood and degrees on the wall, designed to intimidate, but Maya found herself curiously calm. "Miss Chen," Dean Morrison began, his tone carefully neutral. "Thank you for coming in to discuss yesterday's incident. I want you to know that the university takes allegations of assault very seriously." "Allegations?" Patricia interjected smoothly. "Dean Morrison, there's video evidence of 3 students physically restraining my client and cutting her hair without consent. This isn't an allegation, it's a documented assault." Maya watched the dean's expression shift as he realized this wasn't going to be the quiet, internal matter he'd hoped for. The story had gone viral overnight. #MayaChallenge was trending on multiple platforms, and the university was under intense scrutiny. "Of course," he said quickly. "Poor choice of words. What I meant to say is that we're treating this with the utmost seriousness." The 3 students in question have been suspended, pending a full investigation. And their previous behavior? Maya asked quietly, because this wasn't an isolated incident. Dean Morrison's shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. I'm not sure. What you mean? Sarah leaned forward. Maya, show him the messages. Over the past 24 hours, Maya's phone had been flooded with messages from other students sharing their own encounters with Brittany, Jessica, and Chloe, stories of accidental collisions that sent books and laptops flying, racist comments disguised as jokes, systematic exclusion from study groups and social events, a pattern of harassment that had been going on for months. Maya pulled out her phone and began reading. This is from David Kim in my algorithms class. They cornered me outside the library last month and told me I should go back where I came from because I was making everyone else look bad. This is from Priya Patel. They've been spreading rumors that I only got into the program because of affirmative action. This is from Marcus Williams. They followed me to my car after class, taking pictures and making comments about my appearance. She looked up at Dean Morrison. There are 17 more messages like these. 17 students who felt unsafe but didn't report it because they didn't think anyone would believe them or take it seriously. The dean's face had gone pale. Why? Why didn't any of these students come forward before? Because, Patricia said crisply, the 3 perpetrators are from wealthy, well-connected families who donate generously to this university. Because reporting harassment often results in more harassment. And because, quite frankly, your institution hasn't exactly cultivated an environment where students feel safe reporting these incidents. Maya's phone buzzed with another call, her 4th interview request of the day. The story had legs, and the media was paying attention. Miss Chen, Dean Morrison said carefully, what would you like to see happen here? Maya had been thinking about this question since the previous morning. Her first instinct had been simple justice, expulsion for the 3 attackers, acknowledgement of wrongdoing, an apology. But as more stories had emerged, as she'd seen the impact of her moment of resistance, she'd realized this was an opportunity for something bigger. I want a comprehensive review of harassment policies, she said. I want mandatory training for all students on respect and inclusion. I want a reporting system that protects victims rather than protecting the institution. And I want those 3 women to face real consequences, not just a slap on the wrist that lets them transfer somewhere else and continue this behavior. That single quote says ... quite extensive, the dean said. So is the problem, Maya replied. This didn't happen in a vacuum. This happened because the environment here made 3 students feel comfortable assaulting another student in public. On video, because they thought there would be no consequences. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. You think you're so smart, but this isn't over. You have no idea who you're messing with. Maya showed the message to Patricia, who immediately forwarded it to the university's legal department and the police. I think we're done here, Patricia said, standing. Unless Dean Morrison has any objection to us holding a press conference this afternoon to discuss the university's response to student harassment. No objection, the dean said quickly. And Miss Chen, I want you to know that we will be implementing the changes you've suggested, all of them. As they left the administration building, Maya felt a strange mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. Fighting back felt good, but it was also emotionally draining in ways she hadn't expected. You okay? Sarah asked, linking their arms as they walked across campus. I think so. It's just ... weird, you know. 24 hours ago, I was invisible. Now everyone wants to talk to me. You were never invisible, Sarah said firmly. You were just hiding your light under a bushel. Now the whole world gets to see what I've known all along, that you're absolutely extraordinary. They were walking past the student union when Maya spotted a familiar figure sitting alone on a bench, head in her hands. It was Jessica, one of her attackers from the coffee shop. and she was crying. Maya's first instinct was to keep walking. The old Maya might have felt sorry for her, might have approached to offer comfort. But as she watched Jessica, she noticed something that made her pause. The crying look performed. Deliberate. Jessica kept glancing around to see if anyone was watching, adjusting her posture for maximum visual impact. "Maya, don't," Sarah warned, recognizing the look on her friend's face. But Maya was already walking toward the bench, her curious mind analyzing the situation. As she got closer, she could hear Jessica talking on her phone. "I know, Mom, it's just so unfair," Jessica was saying, her voice loud enough to carry. "We were just having fun, and she totally overreacted. Now our whole lives are ruined because she can't take a joke." Maya felt something crystallize in her chest, not anger this time, but clarity. "Jessica," she said quietly. Jessica looked up, her tear-streaked face immediately shifting to an expression of fear. But Maya caught the calculation behind her eyes, the quick assessment of whether this interaction could be weaponized somehow. Maya, let me ask you something," Maya said, sitting down on the bench but maintaining careful distance. "Do you actually believe what you just said to your mother? That cutting someone's hair against their will is just having fun?" Jessica's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "Because here's what I think," Maya continued in that same conversational tone. "I think you know exactly what you did. I think you planned it, brought scissors specifically for that purpose, and I think you're not actually sorry it happened. You're just sorry you got caught." "That's not I didn't," Jessica stammered. "The threatening text your friend Brittany sent me an hour ago suggests otherwise." Jessica's face went white. "What text?" Maya showed her the message. Jessica's reaction was immediate and telling, not surprise, but panic. She wasn't supposed to. Jessica caught herself, but it was too late. She wasn't supposed to do what? Threaten me? Put it in writing? Get caught? Maya stood up, looking down at Jessica with something that might have been pity. "Here's some free advice," she said. "When you inevitably get called into Dean Morrison's office, don't perform this victim act. Don't cry about how your life is ruined. Take responsibility for what you did. Apologize sincerely and commit to being better. Because of this performance, it's not helping your case." As Maya walked away, she heard Jessica call after her, "You can't prove any of this." Maya paused and looked back. "Jessica, there's a video of you holding me down while your friend cut my hair. There's a written threat from your accomplice. There are 17 witnesses to your pattern of harassment. I don't need to prove anything. You've already proven it yourself." Walking back to Sarah, Maya realized that something fundamental had shifted in how she moved through the world. The old Maya would have felt guilty for not comforting a crying person, even someone who had hurt her. The new Maya understood that accountability wasn't cruelty, it was kindness in disguise. "I'm proud of you," Sarah said as they headed toward their dorm. "For what?" "For not accepting her fake apology. For not letting her manipulate you into feeling sorry for her. For understanding that some people mistake kindness for weakness and refusing to be weak." Maya's phone buzzed with another message, but this one made her smile. "Maya, this is Marcus from the coffee shop crowd yesterday. A bunch of us have been talking, and we want to start an organization for students who've experienced harassment. Would you be interested in being involved? We could really use someone with your courage leading the way." She showed the message to Sarah, who grinned. "So what do you think? Ready to change the world?" Maya looked around the campus where she'd spent the last 2 years trying to be invisible, where she'd accepted microaggressions as the cost of admission, where she'd made herself smaller to avoid conflict. "You know what?" she said. "I think I am." But first, she had a press conference to attend, and 3 bullies who were about to learn that actions have consequences. The game was far from over. The community center conference room buzzed with nervous energy as 23 students filed in for the first meeting of what they decided to call the Solidarity Coalition. Maya sat at the front table, still adjusting to her new role as an accidental leader, watching faces she recognized from around campus but had never spoken to. Marcus Williams, the graduate student who'd first reached out, stood to address the group. 2 weeks ago, most of us were dealing with harassment individually, feeling isolated and powerless. Then Maya showed us what standing up looks like, and suddenly we're not alone anymore. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Maya glanced around at the assembled faces: Korean, Vietnamese, Indian, Black, Latinx, and several white students who'd witnessed harassment or been targeted for defending others. The common thread wasn't ethnicity, but experience. They'd all been made to feel like outsiders in their own educational space. "Let's start with introductions," Maya suggested. "Share your name, your major, and if you're comfortable, what brought you here?" David Kim went first. "I'm David, computer science. And I'm here because I'm tired of being told I'm a cheater when I get good grades. Tired of being called a robot. Tired of people assuming I have no personality because of how I look." Priya Patel adjusted her hijab and spoke clearly. "I'm Priya, biomedical engineering. I'm here because I'm exhausted from defending my right to exist in spaces I've earned access to. Because I'm tired of people questioning whether I belong here." One by one, they shared their stories. The pattern was sickeningly familiar. Microaggressions that escalated to open hostility. Professors who looked the other way. Administrators who prioritized reputation over student safety. "What I want to know," said a junior named Aina Rodriguez, "is what happened to Brittany, Jessica, and Chloe? Because I heard they're trying to transfer to other schools instead of facing real consequences." Maya pulled out her phone and opened the email she'd received that morning from Dean Morrison. "Actually, that's not happening. The university completed their investigation yesterday. All 3 are being expelled, not just suspended. They also face criminal charges for assault." The room erupted in surprised chatter. Maya raised her hand. "For quiet, there's more. Remember that threatening text Brittany sent me? It turns out she sent similar messages to 4 other students who'd reported harassment. That bumped it up to cyberstalking charges. And when campus security searched their social media accounts, they found group chats where they'd been planning these attacks, using racial slurs and sharing photos they'd taken of students without consent." "Holy shit," someone whispered. "The university is also implementing the policy changes I requested," Maya continued. "Mandatory harassment training, better reporting systems, and a new position, Director of Student Inclusion and Safety, specifically to handle these issues." David raised his hand. "So we won? Is that it?" Maya shook her head. "We won this battle. But the system that allowed those 3 to operate for months without consequences is still there. Other schools have their own versions of Brittany, Jessica, and Chloe. And honestly, the fact that it took someone recording an assault and posting it viral for anything to happen shows how broken things still are." She stood up, feeling the weight of 22 pairs of eyes on her. "So here's what I'm thinking. We don't just want to be a support group for victims. We want to prevent other people from becoming victims in the first place. We want to create a network that extends beyond this campus, that shares information and resources and strategies." Aina leaned forward. "What kind of strategies?" Maya had been thinking about this for days, drawing on her martial arts training and her grandmother's stories of organizing in their home country. Buddy systems for walking alone at night. Witnesses for any student who needs to report harassment. Training sessions on de-escalation and, when necessary, self-defense. A database of faculty members who can be trusted to take reports seriously. And maybe most importantly, a rapid response system for when harassment happens so no one has to face it alone. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. "I love it. How do we start?" "We start by recognizing that this isn't just about us," Maya said. "It's about the students who'll come after us, and the ones at other schools dealing with the same things right now. Her phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. She was about to ignore it when she saw the area code. It was from her hometown. "Excuse me," she said, stepping into the hallway. "Is this Maya Chen?" The voice was young, nervous. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jenny Liu. I'm a sophomore at State University, about 3 hours from you. I saw your story on the news, and I wondered if I could ask you for advice." Maya's heart clenched. "What's going on, Jenny?" "There are these 3 girls in my dorm who've been. Well, it's similar to what happened to you. They haven't touched me yet, but they've been escalating. Yesterday, they put dead fish in my backpack and told me I should get used to the smell, since it's what I probably eat at home anyway." Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "Jenny, are you safe right now?" "I think so. But I'm scared, and I don't know what to do. When I saw your interview, how you talked about not accepting unacceptable behavior, I thought maybe you could help me figure out how to be brave like you." "First thing," Maya said firmly, "you're already brave. You called a stranger for help instead of suffering in silence. That takes courage." She spent the next 20 minutes walking Jenny through practical steps, documenting everything, finding allies, understanding the reporting process, identifying safe spaces and trusted adults. "Maya," Jenny said as they were wrapping up, "do you think, would it be possible for me to visit your campus sometime? To meet your group? I feel like I could learn a lot from you all. Absolutely. In fact, let me give you the contact information for our coalition. We're planning a regional conference next month, schools from across the state sharing strategies and resources. You should come." When Maya returned to the conference room, the group was deep in planning mode. Someone had drawn a mind map on the whiteboard, with Solidarity Coalition at the center and branches extending outward. Training, support, prevention, advocacy, networking. "Maya," Priya called out, "we were just talking about the name. Some people think Solidarity Coalition is too generic. What do you think?" Maya looked around the room at these faces that had become so familiar over the past 2 weeks. People who'd found their voices because she'd found hers. People who were willing to do the hard work of making change instead of just hoping things would get better. "You know what?" she said. "I think whatever we call ourselves, what matters is what we do. And what we're going to do is make sure that no student ever has to face harassment alone again." Aina raised her hand. "All in favor of making Maya our official president?" "I vote for co-presidents," Maya said quickly. "This shouldn't be about one person. Marcus, will you share leadership with me?" As hands shot up around the room, Maya felt something settle in her chest, not the tight anxiety she'd carried for years, but a warm sense of purpose. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Saw the news about the expulsions. Justice. Also, Mom wants to know if you'll come to Portland for Thanksgiving. She says you're officially part of the family now." Maya smiled, typing back, "Tell her yes, and tell her I'm bringing friends. We're building something bigger than we imagined." After the meeting, as Maya walked across campus in the evening light, she passed the coffee shop where everything had started. Through the window, she could see students studying, chatting, living their lives in peace. But now she also noticed things she'd been blind to before. The way certain students sat with their backs to walls, constantly scanning for threats. The isolated tables where people of color unconsciously congregated for safety. The dynamics of power and privilege that played out in seemingly innocent interactions. Her phone rang, another unknown number. "Maya, this is Professor Elizabeth Santos from UC Berkeley. I've been following your story, and I wondered if you'd be interested in speaking at our conference on campus climate and inclusion next month." "I'd be honored," Maya said. "But can I bring my team? Because this was never about one person's story. It's about all of our stories." As she hung up, Maya realized that the scared girl who'd sat in the coffee shop 2 weeks ago was still there, still part of her. But now that girl was surrounded by warriors, people who'd found their strength by watching her find hers. And together, they were just getting started. 3 months after the coffee shop incident, Maya stood before a packed auditorium at UC Berkeley, looking out at an audience of students, faculty, and activists from across the country. The Solidarity Coalition had grown from 23 students to over 300 members across 15 universities, and their model was being replicated at schools nationwide. "When those scissors touched my hair," Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the space, "I had a choice. I could accept what was happening to me, or I could decide that enough was enough." In the front row, she spotted familiar faces: Marcus, Priya, David, Aina, and dozens of other coalition members who'd driven down for the conference. Sarah sat with Maya's parents, who had flown in from Seattle, specifically to hear their daughter speak. "But here's what I've learned over the past 3 months," Maya continued. "Individual courage is powerful, but collective action is transformative. One person standing up to bullies makes a moment. A community standing up together makes a movement." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "Since we started the Solidarity Coalition, we've documented over 400 incidents of harassment across our member campuses. 400. That's not an isolated incident, that's a pattern. That's a system that allows certain people to believe they have the right to make others feel unwelcome in spaces we all have equal right to occupy." Maya clicked to her next slide, showing a map of the United States dotted with pins representing coalition chapters. But here's the good news. When students know they're not alone, when they know they have support and resources and people who believe them, they resist. They refuse to accept unacceptable behavior. She clicked again, revealing statistics that made several audience members gasp. Harassment reports are up 300% on our member campuses. But here's the thing: harassment isn't increasing. Reporting is increasing. Documentation is increasing. Consequences are increasing. And because of that, actual harassment incidents are starting to decrease. Applause rippled through the auditorium. We've also learned something else important. The Brittany's, Jessicas, and Chloes of the world aren't born bullies. They're created by systems that reward them for maintaining hierarchies that tell them their worth comes from making others feel worthless. Maya paused, thinking of the conversation she'd had with Jessica 2 weeks earlier. After the expulsions and criminal charges, Jessica had reached out through a mutual acquaintance, asking to meet. Maya had been skeptical, but something in the carefully worded message suggested genuine remorse rather than the manipulation she'd witnessed before. They'd met at a different coffee shop, with Sarah present as a witness. Jessica had looked smaller. Somehow her designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a sweater, her aggressive confidence stripped away. "I wanted to apologize," Jessica had said without preamble. "Not because my lawyer told me to, not because I'm hoping for some kind of deal. Because I've spent the last 3 months in therapy trying to understand how I became someone who could do what I did to you." Maya had waited, saying nothing. "I was raised to believe that my worth came from being better than other people," Jessica continued. "That there was some kind of hierarchy, and my job was to make sure I stayed near the top by pushing others down. It sounds insane when I say it out loud now, but that's really what I believed." "What changed?" Maya had asked. "Getting expelled. Losing everything I thought mattered. And then watching what you built afterward, seeing how you turned something terrible into something that helps people. It made me realize that I've never built anything in my life. I've only torn things down." Jessica had pulled out a check. "This is for your coalition. It's not nearly enough to make up for what I did, but it's everything I have in my savings account. And I've been volunteering at a crisis center for harassment victims. I know you probably don't believe me, but I'm trying to become someone different, someone better." Maya had accepted the check $3,000 that would fund their resource center for months. But more importantly, she'd seen something in Jessica's eyes that looked like genuine change. The thing is, Maya told the Barkley audience, healing has to include everyone. The people who've been hurt, yes, but also the people who did the hurting, if they're willing to do the work to change. She clicked to her final slide, a photo of coalition members from across the country, arms linked, smiling at the camera. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just be angry about injustice, though anger is important and justified. Don't just support victims, though support is crucial. Build something. Create systems that prevent harm from happening in the first place. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them, but also believe that people can change if they want to badly enough. The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. During the reception afterward, Maya found herself surrounded by students eager to start their own coalition chapters, faculty members wanting to implement similar programs, and activists from other movements interested in adapting their model. "Maya," a voice called out. She turned to see a young woman about her own age, approaching nervously. "I'm Jenny Liu," the woman said. "We talked on the phone a few months ago." "I'm the student from State University?" Maya's face lit up in recognition. "Jenny, you came. How are things going?" "So much better," Jenny said, her posture confident in a way Maya remembered from their phone call. "We started a chapter on our campus, and it turns out I wasn't the only one dealing with harassment. We've got 37 members now, and the administration just approved funding for our peer support program." As the evening wound down, Maya stepped outside onto the Barkley campus, breathing in the cool California air. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sensei back home. "Saw your speech online. Your grandmother would be proud. You've learned the most important lesson of all that true strength comes from lifting others up." That Maya smiled, thinking of her grandmother's stories about organizing workers in their home country, about building communities of resistance and support. She'd always thought those stories were about the past, but now she understood they were about the future too. Her phone rang with a FaceTime call from Sarah. "You were incredible tonight," Sarah said, her face glowing with pride on the screen. "Mom and Dad are so emotional they can barely speak. And I have news, I got into the graduate program at Barkley. We can be roommates again next year while you finish your degree." "That's amazing," Maya said. "But wait while I finish my degree? Oh, did I not mention? Professor Santos offered you a research position studying harassment prevention models. Full funding, plus you'd be working directly with university administrators to implement coalition programs nationwide." Maya stared at the phone screen, processing the information. "Sarah, I can't make that big a decision without what? You've already been doing the work for months. Now they want to pay you for it and give you resources to do it better. Maya, you have a chance to change how entire university systems handle harassment. How is this even a question?" As Maya walked back toward the conference center, she passed a group of students sitting in a circle on the grass, talking animatedly about action plans and support networks and accountability measures. They looked like her coalition members. Had 3 months ago full of nervous energy and determination, ready to change their corner of the world. One of them looked up as Maya passed. "Are you Maya Chen?" "I am. We just wanted to say thank you. We're starting a chapter at our school next week, and we're going to use your model. You showed us that we don't have to accept things the way they are." As Maya continued walking, she realized that this was what her grandmother had really been teaching her all those years. Not just how to braid hair, but how to weave communities. Not just how to preserve traditions, but how to build new ones. Her phone buzzed with one final text of the evening, from an unknown number. "Maya, this is Brittany. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I've been watching what you built, and it's incredible. I've been in intensive therapy, and I'm starting to understand how wrong I was. I know I can never undo what I did, but I hope someday I can do something positive with the lessons I've learned. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." Maya stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Everyone deserves the chance to grow. I hope you find peace, and I hope you use what you've learned to help others find theirs." As she headed back to rejoin her friends and family, Maya reflected on how much had changed since that morning in the coffee shop. She'd lost a braid that had taken 3 years to grow, but she'd gained something infinitely more valuable: the knowledge that she was capable of standing up, not just for herself, but for everyone who needed someone to stand with them. And tomorrow, the real work will begin again. 1 year later, Maya stood in the same coffee shop where everything had started, but this time she wasn't alone. The grind had become an unofficial meeting place for the Solidarity Coalition, and today it was packed with familiar faces celebrating the first anniversary of what the media had dubbed the incident that started a movement. Her hair had grown back, falling in soft waves to her shoulders, a deliberate choice to find a middle ground between the traditional length that had been taken from her and the liberating shortness that had helped her discover her power. But the real change wasn't in her appearance. It was in the way she moved through the world with quiet confidence, the way other students gravitated toward her for guidance, the way administrators across the country now knew her name. "Maya!" Keiko called out from behind the counter. The hairstylist had become a regular at coalition events, and today she was volunteering at their information booth. "Did you see the news from Washington?" Maya looked up from her laptop, where she'd been putting finishing touches on her thesis, a comprehensive analysis of peer-led harassment prevention programs that had already been requested by the Department of Education. "What news?" "Senator Martinez introduced the Campus Safety and Inclusion Act in Congress this morning. It's based entirely on your coalition's recommendations." The coffee shop erupted in cheers. Maya felt that familiar mix of pride and overwhelm that came with seeing something you'd started grow beyond your wildest imagination. Marcus appeared at her elbow, grinning widely. "Did you hear? Our model is being implemented at over 200 colleges now, and 3 high school districts want to pilot a modified version." "That's incredible," Maya said, and meant it. But part of her attention was caught by a commotion near the entrance. 3 young women had just walked in, and Maya's trained eyes immediately cataloged the body language: 1 confident leader, 2 nervous followers, the same predatory pack. Dynamics she'd learned to recognize. But these weren't college students. They looked like high schoolers, maybe 16 or 17. "Oh no," Sarah murmured, following Maya's gaze. "Please tell me history isn't about to repeat itself." The leader of the group had spotted something or someone that had caught her attention. Maya followed her line of sight and saw a younger Asian girl, maybe 15, sitting alone at a table with homework spread around her. The girl was clearly trying to make herself invisible, hunched over her books, but her body language screamed vulnerability. Maya watched as the 3 older girls began to move with purpose toward the younger girl's table. She felt her muscles tense automatically, her martial arts training preparing her body for action before her conscious mind had even decided what to do. "Maya," Marcus said quietly, "what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," Maya said, standing up slowly, "that some lessons need to be taught more than once." But before she could move, something remarkable happened. 3 coalition members, students Maya had trained over the past year, were already in motion. David approached the aggressive trio while Priya and Aina positioned themselves near the younger girl's table, not confrontational but clearly present. "Excuse me," David said politely to the leader of the group. "I think you might be lost. This is a study space, and you're making people uncomfortable." The girl turned on him with the same entitled hostility Maya remembered so well. "Mind your own business, freak. We're not doing anything wrong." "You're absolutely right," said Aina, stepping forward with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're not doing anything wrong yet. But you're about to." and we're here to help you. Make a better choice." The younger girl at the table looked up, confused but hopeful. Priya sat down across from her, introducing herself quietly while keeping one eye on the developing situation. "What the hell is this?" the leader demanded. "Some kind of Asian gang?" Maya felt her jaw clench, but she forced herself to stay seated. This was exactly what they'd trained for: coalition members supporting each other, so no one had to face harassment alone. "This," said David calmly, "is what happens when you target someone who has a community. This young woman isn't alone. None of us are alone anymore." The leader looked around the coffee shop, suddenly realizing that conversations had stopped and people were paying attention. Unlike a year ago, when bystanders had been paralyzed by the drama, now there were dozens of people wearing coalition buttons, trained witnesses who knew exactly what was happening and how to respond. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from the younger girl. Somehow she'd figured out who Maya was and found her contact information. "Are these your friends? They're incredible. I'm Amy, by the way. I go to Roosevelt High." Maya typed back, "They're our friends, and you're not alone." Ever. The three would-be bullies seemed to finally understand that they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. This wasn't the isolated, vulnerable target they'd expected to find. This was a community that had learned to protect itself. "This is stupid," the leader muttered, but she was already backing toward the door. "Come on, let's get out of here." As they left, the coffee shop erupted in applause, not for the drama, but for the prevention. For the community that had come together to stop harm before it happened. Maya walked over to Amy's table, where the girl was now surrounded by supportive coalition members. "How did you know to text me?" Maya asked. Amy held up her phone, showing Maya's contact information saved under Emergency Heroes. "My older sister gave me this number when I started high school. She said if I ever felt unsafe and didn't know who to call, I should text you." "Your sister?" "Jenny Lou. She goes to State University. She says you changed her life." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. The ripple effects of their work kept expanding in ways she'd never anticipated. "Amy," she said, sitting down, "how would you feel about starting a coalition chapter at your high school?" The girl's eyes lit up. "Could we really do that?" "You just saw what's possible when people support each other," Maya said. "Imagine if every student in your school knew they had that kind of backup." As the excitement in the coffee shop gradually returned to normal levels, Maya found herself thinking about the year that had passed. The Brittany's, Jessica's, and Chloe's were still out there, some learning and growing, others transferring their toxic behavior to new environments. But now there were communities ready for them. Networks of support that ensured no one had to face harassment alone. Her phone rang with a call from Professor Santos at Berkeley. "Maya, I have news. The MacArthur Foundation wants to meet with you about their Emerging Leaders program." And the White House Office of Civil Rights called. "They want to discuss implementing your model at the federal level." Maya looked around the coffee shop where her transformation had begun, at the young people who'd found their voices because she'd found hers, at the community that had grown from a moment of deciding not to accept the unacceptable. "Professor Santos," she said, "those are incredible opportunities. But can I call you back? I'm in the middle of helping a high school student change her world." As Maya hung up, Amy was already pulling out her laptop, eager to start planning. The cycle was beginning again, another young woman discovering her power, another community preparing to protect itself, another ripple spreading outward into the world. Maya's phone buzzed with one final message of the day. From a number she'd saved under second chances, Maya saw the news about the federal legislation. "Jessica and I have been volunteering with anti-bullying programs in our hometown. Though you should know that change is happening everywhere, including in people you probably never expected. Thank you for showing us what redemption looks like." Brittany. Maya stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "Thank you for showing me what healing looks like." The work continues. She put her phone away and turned her full attention to Amy, who was already sketching out plans for reaching out to classmates, identifying potential allies, and building something that would outlast high school drama and create real, lasting change. As the afternoon sun streamed through the coffee shop windows, illuminating the faces of young people planning to make the world better, Maya realized that this was what victory actually looked like. Not one moment of standing up to bullies, but the community that chose to keep standing day after day, until no one had to stand alone. The braid they'd cut from her hair in this very spot had represented tradition and patience and the wisdom of her ancestors. But what had grown in its place was something even more powerful, the knowledge that she was part of an unbreakable network of people committed to protecting each other, and that network was growing stronger every day. What did you think of this thrilling journey? Share your favorite moment in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest tales. What kind of story would you like to hear next? Let me know in the comments and I'll create another incredible adventure for you. Dr. Maya Chen walked across the Harvard University campus, her heels clicking confidently on the brick pathways as she headed toward the Kennedy School of Government. At 27, she carried herself with the poise of someone who had learned early that true power came not from dominance, but from lifting others up. Her hair fell in a sleek bob to her shoulders, professional, practical, and entirely her choice. The scared graduate student who had once sat in a coffee shop trying to be invisible had evolved into one of the country's leading experts on community-based harassment prevention, with a Harvard fellowship, a book deal, and a TED Talk that had been viewed over 10 million times. But more importantly than any accolade, she had helped build something that was transforming how institutions across the country approached the safety and inclusion of their communities. The Solidarity Coalition now operated in over 800 schools and universities, with chapters in 12 countries. The model had been adapted for workplaces, community centers, and even online platforms. What had started as 23 traumatized students in a community center conference room had become a global network of peer advocates and allies. Maya's phone buzzed as she entered the building where she would be giving a presentation to education policymakers from around the world. Maya, the voice belonged to Sarah, calling from Portland, where she now worked as a civil rights attorney. I'm watching the live stream of your presentation today. Break a leg. Thanks. How's the new job? Amazing. Actually, funny story. Remember Jessica from the coffee shop incident? She just started working here as a victim's advocate. Turns out she's been doing incredible work with survivor services for the past 4 years. People really can change. Maya smiled as she ended the call. She'd learned that redemption stories were just as important as resistance stories, that creating space for people to grow was as crucial as holding them accountable for harm. As she walked into the auditorium, Maya spotted familiar faces in the audience. Marcus was there, now Dr. Marcus Williams, running coalition programs for the California University system. Priya had flown in from Geneva, where she worked with the UN on global education initiatives. David was beaming from the front row, having just been appointed to the Department of Education's Harassment Prevention Task Force. But the face that made Maya's heart swell was in the very back row. Amy Liu, now a sophomore at MIT, wearing a Coalition-strong t-shirt and taking notes with the same fierce determination Maya remembered from their first meeting in the coffee shop. 5 years ago, Maya began her presentation. I learned that the moment you stop accepting unacceptable behavior is the moment you discover your own power. But what I've learned since then is that individual power is just the beginning. Real change happens when we connect our individual courage to collective action. She clicked to her first slide, showing a map of the world dotted with coalition locations. The question isn't whether harassment and discrimination exist. They do, and they always have. The question is whether we're going to build communities that are stronger than the hatred they face. As Maya spoke about policy recommendations and implementation strategies, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. The woman looking back at her had strong shoulders, direct eyes, and a presence that commanded respect not through fear, but through competence and compassion. Her grandmother had been right all those years ago. Bamboo did bend without breaking. But what her grandmother couldn't have known was that sometimes, after bending, bamboo grew into entire forests interconnected, root systems that made each individual plant stronger than it ever could have been alone. After the presentation, as Maya mingled with policymakers and advocates from around the world, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Dr. Chen, I'm a freshman at University of Texas. 3 girls in my dorm have been targeting me because of my accent and my religion. I found your coalition's website, and I wondered if you could help me start a chapter here. I don't want to be scared anymore. I want to be brave like you. Maya smiled as she typed back, You're already brave. You reached out for help instead of suffering in silence. That's the first step. Let me connect you with our regional coordinator. And remember, you're not alone. You never have to be alone again. As the evening wound down and Maya prepared to return to her hotel, she realized that the work was far from over. There would always be new students facing harassment, new communities that needed support, new systems that required transformation. But there would also always be people ready to stand up not just for themselves, but for each other. People who understood that courage was contagious, that communities were stronger than bullies, and that the arc of justice bent toward equality not by itself, but because people like them kept pulling it in the right direction. Maya's phone rang one final time. The caller ID made her smile. Keiko, Bloom Salon. Maya, I just watched your presentation online. I'm so proud of you. Listen, I know you're traveling constantly now, but next time you're in town, I want to do your hair on the house. It's the least I can do for someone who's changing the world one conversation at a time. I'd love that, Maya said. Thank you, Keiko, for everything. As she hung up, Maya thought about that day in the salon 5 years ago when Keiko had transformed her hacked-off hair into something beautiful and powerful. In many ways, that was what the coalition did too, took the broken pieces of people's experiences and helped them create something stronger. Walking out into the Boston evening, Maya pulled out her phone and sent a group text to her core team. Another successful presentation. Another policymaker was convinced. Another step forward. Thank you all for being on this journey with me. The work continues, but so does the hope. The responses came back immediately. Marcus, proud to be part of this team. Let's change the world. Priya, always forward, never back. Together we're unstoppable. David, you inspire us all. Maya, here's to the next 5 years. Amy, can't wait to graduate and work with you full-time. You showed me what's possible. And finally, from Sarah, I love you, my fierce friend. Mom and Dad say hello, and they're proud of you too. See you next week in Portland. As Maya walked through Harvard Square, past students hurrying to evening classes and study groups, she thought about all the young people in all the schools across the world who were going to sleep tonight, knowing they had communities supporting them, knowing they didn't have to face harassment alone, knowing that someone, somewhere had stood up so that they could stand stronger. The braid that had been cut from her hair in a coffee shop 5 years ago was long gone. But what had grown in its place, the network of connection and courage that now spanned the globe, would continue growing for generations to come. Maya's phone buzzed with one final notification. A news alert about the Campus Safety and Inclusion Act being signed into law, making peer support programs mandatory at all federally funded educational institutions. She smiled as she realized that somewhere in the world, a young person was about to discover that they were not alone, that they had power they didn't know they possessed, that courage was contagious, and communities were stronger than the cruelty they faced. And tomorrow, Maya would keep doing the work to make sure that young person, and all the young people who would come after them, had the support they needed to transform their own moments of powerlessness into movements of change. The story that had begun with scissors and humiliation had become something neither she nor her attackers could have imagined, a testament to the truth that broken things, when tended with care and community, often grew back stronger than they had ever been before. What did you think of this thrilling journey? Share your favorite moment in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest dailies. What kind of story would you like to hear next? Let me know in the comments, and I'll create another incredible adventure for you.